Joe is doing a fantastic and really fascinating startup called Putplace. You've got to check it out. Out from Dublin. And his presentation is here. Hey, you get off of my cloud, launching your startup on a cloud computing infrastructure. Music maestro.
It's very high up here. My name is Joe Drumgoole. I founded a company called Putplace in 2006 to do online backup. I'd been humming and hawing about this problem in 2005, and we looked at all of the cost base for doing this, and at the time the cost per gigabyte for storage was about $5 per gigabyte. If you went to IBM or HP or NetApp, they'd give you a total cost of ownership of storage about $5 a gigabyte. Hopelessly inefficient in terms of cost. No way you could run a stable business on that. And what we did was we bet that the cost would go down before we actually had to charge for the business. So kicked off the business in 2006, started off, and we just couldn't afford to buy hardware. We knew we were going to have to spend $1 million on a data center at the end of 2006 to run our business. And it was like, we were compelled by our very nature to start thinking about how we would host services to reduce the total cost of ownership of our capital so we could save capital for this inevitable huge spend on a data center somewhere in the end of 2006. About 2 months into the start of the business, Amazon launched S3, and we were amazed. I mean, suddenly from $5 a gigabyte, we were down to 15 cents a gigabyte. And this transformed our business, and it's transformed a host of other businesses across the world. So what I'm going to do is tell you a little bit about the specific things we've done on the cloud and we've deployed in the cloud, some of the issues that we now know about cloud deployments and cloud utilization, a couple of cost curves, and then we'll do a little bit of quick Q&A if there's some time afterwards. So, big long stack of technology. I mean, we started off and we said we're going to host our subversion stuff and our track and our bug tracking system all in the cloud. We didn't call it the cloud at the time because we wanted to make sure we could completely move the office to wherever it ended up being in the future. We wanted to make sure every piece of our technology was in the cloud, so we took all of our PCs and we used dynamic DNS, a vendor called DNS, along with Hamachi, which is a virtual private network, to ensure that everybody's PC was cloud accessible in the same way that all our servers were. This made it possible for all of our developers to work with all of their source tree and all of the other developers, of which there was 3 at the time, whether they were at home, whether they were in the office, whether they were everywhere. We also started to look at other services that we could use in the cloud. So we went for Google Apps straight away when that launched. That gave us access to all of our documents, all of our email. We didn't have to do that thing that you normally had to do in the other startups I've been involved in, which is hire that technical guy, bring him in to set up your Exchange server or your Linux server or your file server, whatever. All of our stuff lived in Google Apps for Domains or in this whoosh.net subversion and track system. We made an early pick on a technology stack of Python and Django and Postgres. I would definitely go back if I could do it again and pick MySQL over Postgres. We used Postgres because we were afraid of some licensing entanglements with the MySQL database at the time. That turned out to be not the case. As we moved up the stack, we started to look at how we would do our scalable infrastructure on the Amazon stack. And one of the things we discovered with Amazon is it's really, really cheap to host your storage, but it gets really, really expensive if you put your stuff in and pull your stuff out a lot of times. And when we do online backup, we slice the file up, we stick it into S3, then we pull it back out, coalesce it, and put it back into S3. That worked really well. The problem is the puts and gets kill you. 25% of our total cost of storage was down to those transactions when we started to track what the costs were. So what we did was we took our grid of storage and we rolled out Mogile FS. One of the nice things about Amazon's grid is you get 250 gig of practically free storage with every node. Mogile gives you the ability to aggregate all of that storage as a single file system, and we were able to do our coalescing on Mogile and our puts and gets of the initial blocks into Mogile. This straight away eliminated 25% of our costs, and it's a continuing theme of the talk. The per transaction costs will kill you if you don't watch out for them. If you're hosting everything in the web, you're not going to have access to the boxes as easily as you do the stuff at home. Really important to get a monitoring solution in place early. We were very lucky to have Justin Mason, who's a VP of the Apache Foundation, and he deployed the Nagios configuration that's used in Apache. And what Nagios gives is a complete internal map of all of the system's state. Nice web interface, accessible from anywhere. We get emails that tell us when things go wrong. Then the belt and braces is Monitus, that sits outside of our grid, and that just gives us uptime counts for all of our services, blogs, our own application, our Jabber server, and a bunch of other stuff that we use internally. So Monitus gives us the quick hit when there's a down service, and Nagios gives us both root cause analysis and warnings of things going wrong, if processes are running out of memory, if disk space is running low. Between the two of those, we're able to manage our whole grid with basically one part-time programmer. As we started to deploy into business and started to sell to customers, we had to look at a couple of options. We needed an online support product. We've gone with the Zendesk solution. I can highly recommend it. It's cheap. It's an excellent service, despite being written in Ruby on Rails. We love the Zendesk service, and again, it can be completely repurposed and rebadged as the put place support service, so nobody knows we're using Zendesk. The final piece of technology.
Zendesk, Z-E-N-D.
D-E-S-K, yeah.
Right.
Final piece of technology that we had to roll out was a billing system and a payment system. Now, I don't know whether it's the same in the UK, but getting a merchant bank and a credit card processor and a billing engine working together is a lot of work in Ireland. Never mind the engineering, the logistics of getting those pieces working together are quite hard. PayPal eliminates all of that imperial entanglement and allows us to just essentially bill the customer, get the contents in, and just keep a very small amount of data in our own system around billing and control. So we end up hosting all of this stuff. Pretty much every piece of technology we have that we use in PutPlace today lives in the cloud. From the infrastructure on EC2 and S3 to all of the services that we host and use, and the desktops that we use to develop on every day. However, there are a couple of issues you need to be aware of with cloud computing, and I've broken them down into a couple of areas. The first big one is the data problem. It takes a long time to get stuff up into the cloud, right? Or you're going to pay a large sum of money for a very big pipe. Now, it doesn't matter for us with online backup. People are happy to wait 2 weeks to get their 20 gig up over a standard ADSL. But if you need to get data up there in a hurry, if you're a mission-critical system and you're depending on the cloud, you need to think about how you can work both locally and remotely. And I would strongly advise against somebody completely depending on a single cloud vendor at this point in time. Everybody goes down. It takes a long time to get the stuff back out. So if you need to get all your data out in a hurry, that's a big challenge. So we've always run kind of a multi-tiered system. So the master data lives in S3, but actually everything that we need to touch and deal with on a day-to-day basis also lives in a Mogile file system that's hosted in EC2, but could easily be hosted at another vendor's service.